Working as an FBI special agent was my dream job. My whistleblowing was apolitical and in the spirit of upholding my oath. Nonetheless, the FBI cynically elected to close ranks and attack the messenger.
The FBI will crush you. This government will crush you and your family if you try to expose the truth about things that they are doing that are wrong. We are all examples of that.
Joining us now are Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle. Thanks for joining us, fellas.
FBI whistleblowers Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle both join us now. Gentlemen, so glad to have you on the program. Thank you for your testimony.
We need more folks like you, and I'm sure more people are going to be, from your background, are going to be giving you guys more intel as you're sharing that with the rest of us. We can kind of see that this is becoming normal for them to be held accountable, because I think especially an institution that we pay their salaries, they need to be held accountable.
I think a lot of people do share our beliefs and convictions. I think they just aren't at the point that Steve and I and others have gotten to. They're too afraid.
Thank you so much for being a guest here on PBD Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
How big is that bloody flag that Steve's got? It's the stole wall of his house. Lots of love, guys. Thanks very much for joining us.
Steve Friend, Garrett O'Boyle. Thank you for being with us this morning. More importantly, thank you for speaking out. We appreciate it.
You're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and pursue the truth with FBI whistleblowers and founding suspendables Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast, Thursday, January 16th, 2025. We are live streaming to you on Rumble at rumble.com/amradpod. If you haven't, smash the thumbs up and follow the channel. Over 4,000 followers and climbing. Make sure you subscribe to the audio format on iTunes and iHeart and Spotify. We're getting over 1,000 downloads an episode now. We're starting to reach some more people. Well, let's keep this momentum going. We're grateful to have you along with us because we're talking about showing their true colors today. Going to get into some more FEMA shenanigans. The president of the United States has a lot to say, and nobody's really listening to it. Vice president still really angry that she got her butt kicked about a month ago in the election. And we got a whole bunch more to get to. Excited to have you along with us because we're talking about their true colors. And I was thinking about this. When do people really show you who they are? It's two situations. When they have everything to lose, when the pressure is on. And we talk about that all the time. That's why we talk about cowardice and how the cowards are the first ones cast into the lake of fire, as Garrett drilled down on Tuesday. But we don't really talk about the other group of people. And those are people who have nothing to lose at all, which is what we're confronting now in the waning days of a Biden human Roomba administration. So we're going to keep our eye on that because they are very dangerous. We need to make sure that we are cognizant of the threat as it exists. And I am cognizant that Garrett is with me, waiting in the weeds to have the discussion here. I hit him with a couple of the topics cold, and he's ready and anxious. Bring him on. Make sure you follow him at GOBActual is the follow. He's not shadow banned anymore, or is he? We don't know. He makes Elon mad because if he's making Elon mad, then he's got the awareness of people. But I don't know. Maybe you're just screaming into the void, a void of one, a digital gulag, if you will, sir.
That's what it seems like. I did change my profile picture because sometimes that gives you a little bit of a reset. So we'll see. But yeah, I'll go on to X and I'll check my notifications, and they are less and less and less, and the views are less and less and less, and whatever.
You would think mathematically, if they go down every single time, eventually they will get to zero. Maybe they'll go negative. Maybe you'll actually owe Elon money, which would be the greatest scam of all time from that guy. Just going after GOB's wallet. It's just a shill for the deep state. And talking about deep state, let's kick it off because I was mentioning to you about FEMA, which is still around. Is much to our chagrin. I don't think we should have a FEMA. I'm outvoted on that one, but we are assigning them lots of responsibilities, like giving millions and millions of dollars to millions and millions of illegal aliens rather than their actual true stated mission, which is supposed to provide support to people in the event of a natural disaster or something to that effect. And everyone has forgotten about North Carolina, including FEMA, apparently. So reporting from Fox News that FEMA is kicking out hurricane survivors because they ran out of money or ran out of interest. Again, showing their true colors. They have nothing to lose at this point, Garrett. So why not? Let's just hurt them as much as possible. Fox News says FEMA ended temporary housing assistance for about 2,000 North Carolina residents last weekend during a snowstorm when temperatures were expected to be below 20 degrees. So about a week ago, January 3rd, FEMA began notifying some families checked into hotel excuse me, or motel rooms that they were no longer eligible for the program due to one of the following reasons. So there's a couple of reasons why you might be booted out of the hotel. Um, I guess being an American citizen in need's not enough. They had an inspection indicated that their home is now habitable, which would be hard since they're not inspecting houses with MAGA signs. They declined an inspection because they don't trust an agency that doesn't go up to their house because they have a MAGA sign, or FEMA has been unable to contact them to update their housing needs, which to me is the big giant catch-all. Why would FEMA not be able to contact people who don't have access to cell phones or internet or postal service? We tried everything we could, and they didn't respond. So I guess they must be good.
Steve, as you're going through just this list of what they essentially aren't doing for people in need, it really stokes some ire in me because, like we say all the time, government is already too big. Government is not going to save you. But on the flip side, when you have government, it is these types of reasons that a government is supposed to come in and be sort of that stopgap when you need it, take care of my military and my borders and defend my nation, take care of the interstates. These are basic, simple things that government is supposed to take care of and should have been taken care of already. And now they say, "Oh, well, we're out of money and we're not going to take care of you." And, "Oh, we can't even figure out how to contact you. But we will continue to give money to illegal immigrants who are coming across our border because we have to take care of them. And America is the land of opportunity, and we have to put them on a pathway to citizenship. And, oh, while we're at it, we'll let in some Afghan refugees that haven't been vetted. And I just saw this story the other day of some cleaning lady in Chicago who found all sorts of C4 and other bomb making materials and police officer uniforms and fake IDs in an apartment complex in Chicago. And I think, okay, is this some sort of government plot or psyop, as the internet trolls may call it? Or are there cells like this because of the failings of our government all over the place, but they're not going to take care of actual Americans when a natural disaster hits? And then they're going to just say, well, we can't figure it out. And bye, you have to get out of your temporary housing.
Well, I'm actually a little bit confused because there's been reporting that FEMA is out of money because they had to spend all of their billions on millions of illegal aliens, making sure that they had food and clothing and transportation and housing and access to jobs and, I don't know, probably a cell phone with porn sites predetermined on there and preset for them. But we're getting conflicting information from the human Roomba in chief on that one because according to him, the number of crossings that we've seen during his administration has actually dropped.
Look, let's get something in mind about the border. When I became president, the numbers came way down, number one. Number two, we had a circumstance where I pushed very hard for a bipartisan agreement to put more people on the border, more Secret Service agents. And guess what? He's on the phone saying, don't do it. Don't do it. Make me.
Guess what? By the
What?
way, Secret Service agents, I guess, according to Joe Biden, need to be put on the border. And maybe when he said that the numbers were coming down, maybe he meant the number of border agents who were able to do their jobs. But take it for what it's worth. And there was a catchy tune in the background.
That's what that was.
Do you think that is playing on loop in his head? It's sort of like a look on the inside of Joe Biden.
It's got to be every keystroke of that piano is a vanilla ice cream cone swirling through his brain.
Look, he is on his way out, and I think he's got nothing to lose, as do so many of the people who have worked for him. And they're just going to let it rip. I mean, we talk about when the pressure's really on, when you actually have something to lose, people can show you their true colors at that moment. A lot of people shrink from that. And that's why we saw so many cowards who exist in the federal space, and we hammer them. But I think right now we're getting a similar sort of view into people because what do they care? What do they care? The evicted tenant now They want to just burn down the housing structure that the sheriff's waiting there with the eviction paperwork here. And then they'll actually be a little bit honest. I mean, there's always an angle whenever a politician is talking, their mouth is moving, they're lying. But Joe Biden is both somebody with nothing to lose, and he's somebody without a filter because he's 100,000 years old. And on top of that, he's got dementia. So in the rare moments when they have to jack him up on all those amphetamines, and when I say jack him up, I'm not talking about the jag-offs that Pete Hegseth was talking about during his confirmation hearing, which I was dying laughing. That's
Yes.
like putting IP Freely as your name at Starbucks, went way over the head of the senator there.
Mm-hmm.
But to Joe Biden last night, Joe Biden, guess what, by the way, had his moment to give a farewell address. He had a farewell address at the DNC where they put it at like 10:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, so nobody saw it. But this was now the Oval Office. So here's a clip from there, and he's showing you his true colors. What is the communist inside him for that 4 minutes a day really interested in? And that is controlling what you can think and say.
Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation, enabling the abuse of power. The free press is crumbling. Editors are disappearing. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies told for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power.
Okay, Joe, you're just reading off of something that somebody else typed up for you and wrote, but we can pick the thing apart.
Is
bit
that
by
this
bit.
most empty vessel of all time? Because it's like, hey, whatever you say, just add democracy and for our children.
Yes.
And that's as good as the punctuation on the end of that sentence.
Stoke the fear. These are the fear talking points we've used for decades and decades and decades, and they've always worked until they haven't. I like how he invokes the free press. Oh, the free press is dying. No, they're not. They're growing. The free press has exploded in recent memory because of the connectivity that the internet brings, because of platforms like X and Rumble and a dozen others. And you mentioned the inner communist in him, and it makes me think. Shameless plug, lastline.substack.com. We got a fresh one coming out tomorrow where I talk a little bit about communism. And the communist goal is always to expand government. And that's what we see. And we're seeing it on even more of a global stage with places like NATO, the European Union, and how other quote unquote leaders in other places of the world or global leaders, they are sticking their fingers in other countries and trying to expand the total power. And Joe Biden's no different. He is a tyrant through and through, like most government officials become that way. I wish I could tell you why. I wish I could explain it. The simplest reason is because the heart of man is crooked and no one understands it. Because for whatever reason, that little bit of power, it kindles some type of pride. And then in a Joe Biden example, after 5 decades roughly of being in government, he is addicted to that power, even in those 4 minutes of lucidity that he has during the day. And that farewell speech is a perfect example of stoke fear. All the people out there are sheep and they're dumb, and we're going to control them at any cost.
It's beyond just the Joe Bidens of the world. I think it's just oozed on down into the ranks of people. So it's a nice way to connect it to this. There was this poll that was done, and I got my reading of it from the Daily Signal, but it's reported outside of that. But I did think it was interesting because the deep state is gearing up. Half of federal employees in the swamp plan to resist Trump, this poll finds, and it's actually 3 different polls. And they looked at 3 different groups of people. One they called the elite 1%, people with postgraduate degrees, earning more than 150K, living in urban areas. So some of the worst people on earth. They mainstream America, which is like 75% of America who are not postgraduate degrees, do not earn $150,000 and kind of live in like suburbia or rural areas. And then the last group are federal government managers who live in the DC region, and they earn at least $75,000, which is not a lot of money there. But the manager label to me, it says it all. They're definitely earning way more than $75,000 a year.
Oh, no doubt.
Now, according to the surveys, they asked, quote, looking ahead to the next 4 years, will your political efforts be primarily to support the Trump administration or resist the Trump administration? Now, I don't like the actual question, to be honest with you, because if you're going to ask a government worker when you are working in your work capacity, you're not supporting one administration or another. You're following lawful orders as long as they're lawful, constitutional, ethical, moral, that sort of thing. So it's a little bit of a loaded, but we'll go with what they went with. And they're talking about other groups of people that aren't within the government. So they have the ability through a First Amendment, allegedly in the land of the free, to do what they will on that one. So Main Street Americans, about 6 in 10 said they would support the new administration, while only 28% said they would resist it. Even the elite 1% said they were more likely to support. So almost 50% said that they would support the administration. But federal government managers proved evenly split. 44% say they would, and 42% said they would resist it. So the subterfuge within government is rampant, particularly within the DC swamp. So I think you could take it even to like the draining the swamp argument, but I don't think it's limited to just the geographical area around the Capitol.
No, I don't think so either. It's been a long time coming where more and more government employees lean left, or in lots of cases, they've jumped off the cliff to the left. And on one hand, I'm kind of like, well, okay, fine. I'm all for dissidents. That's why America. That's what makes America great. Truly, is the dissidents. That's what America was born out of. And I'm okay with anyone, even if they disagree, pushing back on government. But then once you peel that layer of the onion back and start going towards the nucleus of it, why? And then on top of it, what do you mean you're going to actively resist the incoming administration? I think of our time in government. When Joe Biden got elected, I didn't think I'm going to actively resist. No, of course not. People who are purposeful, who care about this country, who care about the Constitution, who care about their oath, who care about that position that they have in government. But another way to put it is in civil service. It's supposed to be service. We've talked about this before. Romans 13, it says government is supposed to be a servant for your good. The Greek is diakonos, where we get the word deacon from. And a deacon is supposed to be a servant to the people of their congregation, just as a government employee is supposed to be a servant to the rest of the country. So with the administration coming in, you're saying, I'm going to resist. Why? And that's where I start to have a problem with it, because the administration, and I guess in this case you can kind of say, well, we saw what Donald Trump did last time, and I think he's going to implement the same type of policies that I think are wrong, so I'm going to resist those. Okay, there might be some validity there if we have a different worldview, a different perspective. But right off the bat, when you're saying I'm going to resist, it makes me think that it's a step further than civil disobedience. It's a step further than proper dissidence and proper speaking truth to power, or whatever, because it just seems like you want to undermine. I don't think you or me had an intent to undermine anyone. We just want our country to thrive. And when you see actions and policies that are a violation of law, rule, or regulation, like we've called out for the FBI, and in a lot of ways, that didn't even have anything to do necessarily with the administration. It had to do with deep-seated corruption inside the institution that has been there for a long time that no one has called out. Administrations come and go. That doesn't mean you don't call out that the evil within government. And so I don't know. I struggle with this, and especially because it said right there in the swamp. And we know just from our little piece of time in the FBI that yes, the headquarters level, and I think we can expand it to every bureaucracy, every government institution. They're all centrally located there, and it attracts these sycophants who have been in and around government in that area for so long, and they want that communist rule. They really do. Whether they admit it or not, most of them probably don't even understand what it is, but they want the government to intervene in every way, and they want you to shut up and accept it.
And the stakes are extremely high. I mean, we're not just talking about limited to the agencies and the departments that are filled with non-essential workers, which is a whole different discussion of why we're paying for people to have non-essential government jobs. But there are some essential roles, and you've covered on them, like protecting the border and making sure that the interstate roads are functioning, and common defense of the nation, policing. You have the ability to take away people's freedom, potentially their lives. The stakes are very high. And if you, in the back of your head, are saying, I'm going to use my position to resist a politician who's I disagree with his policies on, but is not giving me a directive that is illegal, unconstitutional, immoral, in any way violative of my ethics or my oath of office, then that's a problem. So, and it ranges from the severe to actually the really petty. So just like even take a breath on this one, because you showing your true colors. Said, the stakes are really high for you, and for our Marcus and for Kyle, who gave up their livelihood, put their family's financial well-being at risk. I was even contemplating on this before I get to the pettiness. I was never involved in an officer-involved shooting. And you always wonder, like, when you're really put to it, what would you do, right? I mean, I was involved in like some serious physical skirmishes and that sort of thing, and
Yep.
made it through those and was like, okay, I went to my training, I didn't go code black, but you don't know, right? And that was sort of the trial by fire that a lot of us had, where we were not in a kinetic action, but you were put for that decision. That was your opportunity that you had there, where the stakes were really high. And then you contrast it with the current vice president, who's just really petty because Kamala Harris got her butt whooped and she had to certify the election, which would just suck if it was her.
That would be tough, no doubt.
But she also has responsibilities right now to help with the transition, because she's the vice president. There's an incoming vice president, and he's going to take over her house. So but Kamala Harris did not extend a courtesy to Vance. She declined to invite him for a visit to the Naval Observatory, which is where the vice president lives, reporting from CBS News.
Like, just off the bat, it's like, grow up, lady. She's around 60 years old, maybe a little bit older. Grow up.
And there actually could be some modicum of stakes involved here. The CBS, because they're a leftist rag, said, well, Pence didn't invite Harris in there. And then they begrudgingly said, well, there was coronavirus policy, so she couldn't actually be there. But those policies are not in effect right now. So in November, after the election, Vance's wife, whose name is Usha, via an intermediary, she didn't directly call her, because God forbid you have that conversation on the phone. That would be brutal. Reached out. She'd be hearing about how there's this unburdened by what has been in this house. She reached out to staff for Harris and the second gentleman, Doug Imhoff, seeking details, including if they would have to childproof the house, because they have some small kids and they're worried that they're going to put their fingers in electrical sockets. and Harris wouldn't return the calls.
Dude,
so
it's ridiculous, because this isn't even politics at this point.
It's being a jerk.
Yeah, this is just pragmatic. Hey, I got little kids. Can you just give me a lay of the land so I can? It's sad and disappointing that this is where we're at, where these people who are elevated in our society just by the nature of their positions, this is how petty you're going to be. I mean, come on, this is popping the W off the keyboard level petty.
And now stakes are really high for we cover down on the North Carolinians, and FEMA. Again, I don't want it, but I guess you would say it's an essential thing at this point. We're outvoted on that. People want to have it for emergency situations. We haven't talked a lot about the California fires and the mismanagement that went on there. But I do think that this clip that I have of Joe Biden and what he's prepared to offer California is one of the, if not the greatest revelation of someone's true colors, in light of who is at stake, the place that it's at stake, and the way that it's been handled. And this is Joe Biden, who's saying that they're going to pay Californians $700.
Thanks.
And I want to be clear. We're not waiting until those fires are over to start helping the victims. We're getting them help right now, as you all know. People impacted by these fires are going to receive one-time payment of $770. One-time payment.
I'm just going to pause it there, and I want to keep that image up there because of the map in the background for those who are just listening. You can see that's the heat map of the fire, and I can't help but thinking that it's like a cognitive sort of test of his brain and how there's code red in every other portion of his head.
Yeah.
But I bring this up because the stakes are clearly very high for people living in California. They've lost everything, similar to North Carolina. But North Carolina, it was pretty much, you could attribute it to political malice. That's a pretty red area, and the allegation was made. Are you deliberately trying to kill these people because you don't think they're going to vote for you? Californians in Los Angeles have done everything you've asked of them. Everything. They have bent the knee to every LGBTQAI plus rainbow kamikaze initiative possible. They said, you know what? We're not going to have water come to our city so that we can save a small fish. Like, they have done everything for the climate initiative. They are the people that are out in the streets marching for Hamas. They are all in for communism. And when you got nothing to lose, you're showing that we don't care about you at all. You are a useful idiot to us this entire time.
Yep. What I don't want to say enjoy. That's not the right word, because you can't enjoy what's happening there. But when you look at the end result, I guess, as these fires are the end result of years and years of bad policy, years and years of unreasonable policy, years and years of just drinking the Kool-Aid and just complying, just do what you're told, just follow orders, and the loudest voices are the 1 or 2% who have the most outlandish thoughts and ideas, but we have to do what they say because of my feels for some reason. I don't understand that part of humans, of human nature, of that compliance and that natural idea of going along to get along. And you mentioned the climate, and this is the best part of it. All of the things that they've said to protect the smelt or whatever other pieces of the climate or the natural landscape, literally up in smoke. And now, and I think it's a pretty big if you've done anything to protect the environment with your ideas, you're worse off now, and the environment is worse off just from the fires. All of the houses and material that burned up. And if you buy into their idea of how you take care of nature, well, you've just burned a giant hole into the ozone layer because of your policies that didn't actually help. And I've seen this, that Gavin Newsom has opened up an investigation as to why there wasn't water pressure in it's because look at your fire departments. They are at the top of the LGBTQ pyramid, and basically brag about not being able to carry someone out of a fire and say, well, they got themselves in a bad predicament. No, that's not how this is supposed to work. That's not how government is supposed to work. And then I don't know if you
I
saw
can't
this.
pause you on that one,
Yeah.
that statement alone. Uh, if I was called for the 87th time to the couple that is always fighting and he's always hitting her and he always gets arrested and then she drops charges every single time for domestic violence,
Yeah.
do you get to say as a public servant, you know what? She put herself in that situation. I'm not going.
Nope. And that's a great example, because that's mandatory arrest. You don't get to use your discretion there. And, if it's
You have discretion about picking somebody up in a house fire.
yeah, or you don't have the option. That is your job. That's what you put your chips in for, is for that moment. And it's the domestic abuse is such a good analogy, because like many things in law enforcement, an officer can use their discretion and say, you know what, okay, I found this dime bag of weed on you, and I'm not going to arrest you for it. No big deal. I'm not even going to give you a ticket. But when it comes to this domestic assault, even if you have arrested the guy 10 other times and she keeps going back to him, you still make the arrest because you must. You have to. And it's just, I don't know, man. I guess it's just apropos for where we are in society, especially in California. I used to think they were about 30 years ahead of the rest of us. I think they're maybe 10 at most. And I don't know. It's just I I also think of because of the nanny state that California has become, how bloated their government has become, and then they still fail. And I saw this video. My wife actually showed it to me. She found it on YouTube or whatever, and is this old guy. Probably he might have been in his 70s. He disobeyed every evacuate order. He said that, I grew up in this house. My parents built this house in the 60s. I had to at least try. And with the freaking garden hose, he was able to save his house. Not just his house, but two of his neighbors' homes as well. Just by soaking the ground, the perimeter of their houses, and if fire or embers did kind of jump over, then getting it wet and putting it out. And he said, "Yeah, I put on a mask and I just stayed out here until the fires consumed everything around." And if everybody on the block would have stayed there, they all would have saved their homes. But now it's nope, you're out of luck, and here's $750, and so you can buy some water. And yeah, good luck, because none of you have insurance, because insurance companies weren't providing fire insurance anymore, because they knew that this was a tinderbox and eventually it was going to go up.
California charges you like, well, I mean, this is dated information. I'm sure it's more than that. But I remember being out there and they charged like 25 cents for a shopping bag when you go to the grocery store. It's an add-on. How long do you think $700 is going to last you in Malibu?
Yeah. I mean, it's
Rent is like $25,000 a month. Doesn't even get you a single night stay.
no.
So
You're better off taking that money and just filling up gas and driving away from that wretched area.
we'll buy you about a half a tank at the rates that they have there. And talk about how the feds have shown their true colors. We've got the state authorities, and then we have media, which is essentially a apparatchik for government at this point, particularly at the federal level. And I want to talk about who's showing you their true colors when they have nothing to lose, because they're getting close to having nothing to lose over at the Washington Post, because democracy dies in darkness. Jeff Bezos, a couple ways to actually take this one. So WAPO is shed 90% of its readership in the last 4 years on the digital side.
That is rough.
Right. They had 22 million active users in January 2021 when they were really excited that the human Roomba was awake for 8 minutes a day. But now that it's fallen off, as of the middle of last year, after he was backing out, the number had fallen to 2 million. So a 90% loss in digital readership at Washington Post. On Tuesday, WAPO began laying off approximately 4% of its workforce, and the newspaper lost over 200,000 subscribers in October alone after deciding not to endorse a presidential candidate, because that's when Jeff Bezos was put for a decision for his chips. And he at that point, he had nothing to lose or everything to lose when it came to this little project. I mean, the guy's a billionaire. He's not going to lose that much. But this is his plaything that he used during the coronavirus stuff to hype up the fear and then drive a political narrative and get people to stay home so they could just shop on Amazon. Nobody seemed to think about it that way. That didn't take me that long to put those together. And he was like, well, I'm not going to allow an endorsement because I don't want to. I got to stop the bleeding of
Yeah,
my
it's a
readership.
bad business decision.
But yeah, the 2 million readers that you had remaining were communists. So bad
Yes.
decision there. And I am really just at my limit here with the fact that Jeff Bezos is going to be on the inauguration stage next
Oh
week.
yeah. It's unacceptable. And this is why, yes, I will admit Donald Trump still the better choice, but still very flawed. And I can't help but think of somebody like an Amy Nelson, who
That's it.
you're still fighting this years long battle against Jeff Bezos, against Amazon, against the DOJ, against the FBI, against everything they have thrown at her and her family, and all the money that they've taken, they've seized, they've not paid back. Because wasn't it, even when the judge said, hey, you got to give them their money back, didn't they take 20% still?
They
And
took 15% of all their assets and only gave them 85% with the agreement that they wouldn't sue them.
right,
That's how the
that's
system
absurd.
works.
That's absurd. And man, I can't even begin to pretend like I understand their circumstances fully, but I gotta think that that is a bitter pill to swallow, and I wonder how many sleepless nights they took to even arrive at the decision, because every fiber of them, just because we know the type of people they are, because they put up the fight. They're suspendable type people.
Mhm.
They're not going to stick it out that long uh, if they knew it wasn't right. And even if that meant losing everything, I'm sure that's just how
And
we are.
and for those who don't remember, and just like a real quick cliff notes on who Amy Nelson is, former Obama bundler, business owner, attorney, husband worked for Amazon. His name's Carl, worked for Amazon and then left, did in commercial real estate business. Apparently, there was a business deal that happened, real estate, between Amazon and I think Mark Zuckerberg, I think. And one of the elements of this contract that Amazon, after signing it, said, "Ooh, we got some buyer's remorse," was that if they could have someone charged with a crime, it would void the whole deal. So Bezos and Amazon lobbied the U.S. Department of Justice
Yep.
over 100 times, got them to charge Carl with honest services fraud, as well as a couple others, took all their assets. They have 4 little girls. Did the same thing to a couple of other guys, got them to just plead guilty so that they could get out, get off the X. But Amy said, nope, not going to happen. I'm going to fight it all the way. Fought it all the way to the judge and said, this isn't a crime, what you're alleging at all. This is dismissed. There's been no loss, nothing of the kind. And in fact, I'm going to overturn those guilty pleas from the other guys too.
Mm-hmm.
She's been fighting this since 2020.
Yep.
And now getting to look at Jeff Bezos, who's going to be, within arm's reach of the president-elect, or at that point, the president. It's just got to be a bitter pill to swallow. And, the fact that he had nothing to lose or everything to gain with what's gone on here, how he's sort of tried to shape and message the way the Washington Post is going. He's showed you his true colors.
Mm-hmm.
He really has. And even down to the fact that they wouldn't endorse a candidate when they always have, or at least they had in recent presidential elections. It's all for profit, right? They're not about bringing you the truth, or at least even being transparent about their own biases. Everyone knows Washington Post is a communist rag.
Right.
Let your freak flag fly. But no, we don't have the courage of our convictions on that account. There's maybe a couple of digital readerships that we could get from right of center people or media sources that could then just dunk on our pieces like Steve Friend does and say democracy dies in darkness. But I have the back door. I don't pay for that garbage. All right. And, and when we're talking about Department of Justice and showing you their true colors beyond Amy Nelson, have from Just the News. So I'm not going to bring it up because I don't want to have
all the
87 pop-ups. And it's a discussion about David Weiss, the special prosecutor for Hunter Biden. And he finally issued the report about what happened. And you remember that this is the guy that offered Hunter Biden like the pardon, essentially, that he wound up getting from his dad. And the judge was like, no, you can't give him amnesty from future crimes. Like, what are you talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he confirmed in his report that Hunter made millions of dollars on his family name, and he blasted Joe Biden. Weiss posited that Hunter Biden took advantage of his last name while Biden was VP in order to secure lucrative business opportunities, and willfully chose not to pay over $1 million in taxes on that. Special counsel added that the money was earned for doing, quote, limited work. The report slammed Biden for accusing prosecutors of being political when he pardoned his son. Quote, politicians who attack the decisions of career prosecutors are politically motivated when they disagree with the outcome of a case, undermine the public's confidence in our criminal justice system. The president's statements unfairly impugn the integrity, not only of the DOJ personnel, but all of the public servants making this difficult decision in good faith. I would concur with that if the DOJ was not hot garbage.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that at least now, when he's got nothing to lose, David Weiss, it's all over. He's going to kind of like let it rip a little bit. He's going to be way less, we'll say, Michael Horowitz, Inspector Gender-ish with his language, where he doesn't say very much.
Right. I'll say just enough to stay right in that sweet spot so I can keep my lucrative job. And that's what an IG like Horowitz is. And it's despicable, shameful behavior. So good on Weiss. At least now he's coming out and bringing a little more fury. But with Joe Biden's comments, man, it's just the gaslighting. The gaslighting just persists and persists and persists. We saw it a little bit yesterday for people who might have watched some of Pam Bondi's confirmation hearing, throwing the same type of gaslighting her way too. And say, well, isn't Donald Trump going to weaponize the DOJ? The DOJ has already been weaponized. And like every secret police society prior to it, they do it to get solidarity and sole ownership to one party. And in this case, we are heavily leaning, as we talked about with government already, 50% in the swamp are already planning to undermine Trump. The rest are on their way, because that is how communism, Marxism, secret police, that's how it works. They go heavy towards the one side, typically the side that leans for more government, which in this case, that's Democrats. I mean, and in a large part, it's Republicans as well now, because the Republican Party today is left of the Democrat Party of 1990, but still, communists want more and more and more and more, so they're still going to lean so far left. And I just the gaslighting, man. I love it, because it's for people who've been paying attention, you gotta immediately just roll your eyes and here we go again, because it is so absurd when you look at the examples. And think about it, Steve, with just the FBI. And again, because it's fresh on my mind, I put 19 different examples of FBI weaponization in for tomorrow's Substack. 19. And that isn't even near to all of them. Those are just ones in recent memory, and still not even all of them. And so then you add the rest of government, the rest of DOJ, it's beyond the pale. But oh yeah, Donald Trump is going to do it, and Donald Trump is the fascist, and Donald Trump is the bad guy, and he's going to weaponize the DOJ. Give me a break.
The pot calling kettle black knows no limits. I think it was Christopher Wray in his farewell address. And why is he giving a farewell address?
No
He's such
kidding.
a jerk.
Yes.
And he was talking about this agency can't ever become politicized. And all I was thinking,
Too late.
That's
Yeah.
Neville Chamberlain saying you shouldn't come to an agreement with a genocidal maniac dictator and say we have peace in our time, in his farewell address as the Prime Minister of the UK.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And again, rolling our eyes, talk about WAPO. Let's go to Bloomberg, which did a FOIA on our quarterback, Kash Patel, incoming director of the FBI, to show that he's going to actually politicize this bureau. Kash Patel, whose track record was exposing the politicization of the FBI, how they meddled in presidential elections with the Russiagate investigation. He's definitely not qualified. I mean, he's never done anything around prosecution or defense or national security or intelligence, or he actually has. But reporting from Bloomberg, Kash Patel's emails offer insight into how he might run the FBI. They FOIA'd his emails from when he was over at ODNI to find out just how bad Kash is. So what's the writer's name here? I don't know. We'll just call him Jerkface. This jerkface writes, what's clear from the emails is that Patel arrived at ODNI in an election year on a mission to prove that Trump-Russia investigation was a, quote, hoax. Well, hey, Garrett,
Well, it was.
A hoax? So,
Yeah.
so was Kash Patel on a mission to prove the truth?
Yeah. Isn't that what you want in your FBI, especially in your director?
Look, I mean, Bloomberg has got nothing to lose at this point, right? I bet their readership is similar to what Washington Post is. So we're just going to try to throw red meat out there and not have anyone rely on discernment for what it actually means. Kash set about doing his exposure by declassifying politically sensitive documents. So transparency. In particular, he declassified the transcripts of dozens of depositions given by former Obama administration officials who were involved in the probe, and the targets and the witnesses who were wrapped up in it. Interestingly, Rick Grenell didn't think some of the transcripts were as bad as Patel made them out to be. So now we're trying to create a wedge issue here. But to me, ultimately, and this is again from Bloomberg, this shows that Kash Patel went to ODNI and tried to be as transparent as possible about how deep this corruption went. And this reporter from Bloomberg takes a little bit of umbrage with that. But what the emails show pretty clearly is that Patel politicized the process. In particular, they show he coordinated efforts with high-ranking officials at the White House, DOJ, and Republican lawmakers. So he worked with the White House
Yeah,
and the DOJ and the
like he's supposed
legislative
to.
branch to declassify documents. Uh, his motive appeared to be convincing the public that Trump's narrative on Russia, that there was a hoax motivated by hatred of president, was correct. Hey, Garrett, was the Russia investigation a hoax?
Yes, through and
So,
through.
so Kash Patel proved that this was true, right? He
Yes.
rooted out the corruption. One of
And we don't want that because we're the ruling party and we can't have that. So we have to say that he's the one who's spinning falsehoods. Okay.
in his book, which I encourage everyone to get, Government Gangsters, excellent read. Patel wrote that ODNI became a massive partisan public relations firm for the intelligence community, and that's one of the reasons he shrunk its headcount. So that was the driving force between trying to bring it down. A lot of bloat there, a lot of people that had jobs that didn't need to have jobs who were just political partisans. But, and we got him now, his emails betrayed that he really thought about the agency. So he didn't like that. He alleges in Government Gangsters that it was a politically partisan, highly bloated organization. But what did he really think in his internal emails? In one email that he sent to top officials immediately after arriving at the agency, before he would have had a chance to see how it was politically partisan and bloated, he said, quote, "There is such outstanding work being performed by y'all at ODNI. It's truly humbling. I'm here to help you and your teams." No
So
further information. And because of that, he will politicize the FBI.
okay. I mean, this
They got nothing to lose, man. These are their true colors.
nothing to lose. And you know what? I guess credit to them for just spinning it like this, because how many people are going to go what you just did? How many people are going
Read.
to actually go? Yeah, yes, read, Steve. How many of people out there are going to? Well, the 2 million who subscribe to the WAPO still, they're going to just immediately lap it up and Kash Patel, he's going to weaponize the FBI. This can't be. This is unacceptable. He's the government gangster. And again, it's gaslighting. We did an episode called Gaslighting a while back now, and that is precisely what this is, precisely what you're seeing. But it even goes back to what the human Roomba was saying with his medicated eyes at his farewell address about, oh, the First Amendment is dying and journalism is dying. No, it's not. People are actually waking up and realizing that you are just lying and gaslighting them to believe the narrative that many have bought for decades, that government is actually here to help you. They aren't.
Look, Garrett, I think that you are grossly misinformed on this subject. I'm from the government and I'm here to help is one of the best phrases that we can possibly get from a government that is on its last legs with nothing to lose and is aiming for, I don't know, like think tank jobs or media relations jobs. But let's talk about the American people, right? We talk about the government showing you their true colors, the media, social media. I have a piece here from The Blaze talking about Tom Homan and this incoming expectation of the mass deportations. Are the American people going to show you what their true colors are with this? And this is a little bit of the see something, say something element to it, which I'm not necessarily always comfortable with. But Tom Homan considers citizen hotline for reporting suspected illegal alien criminals. That could be ripe for abuse, just saying. But anyway, Homan stated that the administration is considering establishing a citizen hotline for reporting illegal aliens suspected of committing additional crimes within the U.S. All right, I got to stop right there. I made it one sentence. I apologize. Why do we have to wait for them to commit other crimes?
We shouldn't have
If you
to.
how about a policy of if you have interaction with law enforcement and you're an illegal alien, you get deported.
Yes.
We don't wait for you to rape and murder Laken Riley,
Mhm.
right? But back to the piece here from The Blaze. Holman called for the elimination of the Biden administration's CBP-1 app, the mobile app that allows foreigners by about 1,500 a day to schedule their appointment to just come on in. Currently, Immigration's Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, has 34,000 detention beds. They want to up that to 100,000, so triple the amount. That looks like it's in a good direction here. Do you think that Tom Homan is actually showing his true colors here? Or do you think that this is sort of red meat for the base? And then also, how comfortable are you with the American people to be, I don't know, allies in this effort to mass deport illegal aliens from the homeland?
I'm okay with it in this regard, and again, this is where we need to be careful. It ties into what we're talking about with the swamp creatures and immediately deciding they want to undermine the incoming presidency. This ties into secret police again, because one of the aspects of a secret police organization is their massive network of informants, which we know the FBI has. They won't ever release the number. We do know that at least as of 2018, they average payment per year to all of their informant base is $42 million a year. That's insane. I don't know how many sources that means they have, because payments can vary widely. That being said, these people who have come to our country illegally are breaking the law. They're breaking legitimate law. A nation would not be a nation if it didn't have rules and regulations and laws regarding who can and can't come in to their nation and how. So in this regard, I say yes. If you are living next door to a house that is filled with people who you suspect to be illegal immigrants, by all means, call up Tom Homan and his minions and say, "Hey, come and get them," because they shouldn't be here. They broke the law already coming in. But by and large, I think overall this is just some red meat for the base. I don't know how likely or realistic it'll be.
I've got one more that I want to get to you on because I think you'll really appreciate it. It is a biblical worldview type of question for you about showing your true colors. Before we do, we had a couple of Rumble rants come in. I want to throw them up on the screen to make sure we acknowledge the audience. Guys, always appreciate you being with us every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 10:30 here on Rumble. First one comes from Ed Allen, for the cause. Thank you, sir. And then Eric Jason, who is the moderator there, reminding everyone, smash the thumbs up to show your support for the American radicals, as you should. Thank you very much for moderating the chat there, Eric Jason. Great to have you along with us. All right. This one I saw was an image that was posted on X, and it was people who identify as liberal and then their religious worship attendants, which will say that it was interesting. So I'll throw this up, and you can see that regardless of your color of your skin, it's almost like content of character actually is true here. White, black, Hispanic, Asian, all others. Okay.
Those graphs look pretty much the same.
For those listening, it looks like if you are identifying as liberal, you are not going to church ever, like never. On the left-hand side of the graph is never. On the right-hand side is people who are weekly plus. And the more religious worship ceremonies that people, or at least the more regularly that people are attending, regardless of their racial identity, they tend to be politically to the right. So it's almost like government is your god.
Yes, that's exactly what it's like. It's kind of disturbing to see that essentially across the board, half half of people have bought into that lie that government is God, and just worship them, bow down and worship and do everything they want, and forget that there is a God out there. It's it's really a stark contrast to see, because when you think of the history of our nation and how we started, how we were formed, even something like the Black Robe Regiment, where George Washington commissioned pastors and said, "Hey, rally up your congregations," and they'll go and they'll give a sermon, and then they'll grab their musket and say, "Follow me." The infantry motto is "Follow me." And now to be at this point where no, just bow down and worship government. And I love it. The Marxist atheist will say they have no religion. No, you do, and you adhere to it in a cultish like fashion, and you fail to realize that you're worshiping a false god, just like any other false religion out there. And that type of hubris that clouds them, where they can't even see that they are adhering to those principles just like a religion, is kind of astounding. But that's what the Marxist elites want. They want you to be to be filled with hubris and blind to the fact that you are bowing down at their altar.
Throw it up there one more time, because I'm just thinking about this. The far left-hand side of the graphs on all of them, they're all hovering around just underneath that 50% mark. And that's the groups of people that never attend any religious worship ceremonies. So basically, if you never attend religious worship, it's a coin flip politically where you stand on things. That's really it. You have no direction at that point.
Yeah, you have no moral basis.
If you knew nothing else about somebody, no yard signs, nothing, you walked up to them and asked them one question: how regularly are you attending some sort of religious worship ceremony? And they told you it's once a week. 3 out of 4 of them, and I mean, even in the most like dyed in the wool, always voting Democrat, communist, the black voter that's like 90 some odd percent voting for quarter, only 1/4 of them vote liberal if they're regularly going. So like that to me is just really telling. I mean, all the analyses that went on for getting out the vote efforts. Like, you should probably be going to the churches. You probably should profligate that. You should probably encourage people to get into the pews on Sunday rather than watching the Sunday roundtable discussions that go on NBC News and CBS and ABC. All right, Garrett, I got a palate cleanse. It's about dads. It's fun and awesome. But give you the floor here, sir. What's your thoughts for the day?
Yeah, I actually just switched it up, Steve, because of that final story there. So I was gonna pull something from Ezekiel. Maybe I'll save that for another day. But for now, we'll go to Psalm 50. The whole thing is great, but I'll just read 16 through 22. It says, "But to the wicked God says, what right have you to recite my statutes or take my covenant on your lips? For you hate discipline and you cast my words behind you. If you see a thief, you are pleased with him, and you keep company with adulterers. You give your mouth free rein for evil, and your tongue frames deceit. You sit and speak against your brother. You slander your own mother's son. These things you have done, and I have been silent. You thought that I was one like yourself, but now I rebuke you and lay the charge before you. Mark this then, you who forget God, lest I tear you apart and there be none to deliver." I think that really encapsulates every story we've talked about today. Every single piece that's going on in government that we covered here today is covered there. And it ends with that last piece that ties to our last story, those who forget God. And I don't know, to your own detriment, I say, because I mean, that last verse that I read, mark this then, you who forget God, lest they tear you apart and there be none to deliver. If you don't think there's a little bit of righteous judgment happening in a place like California with the wildfires, I think you have another thing coming. And I think you need to soul search a little bit and dig deep and recognize that Donald Trump isn't going to save you. No man is going to save you. That was done already when God came in the form of man as Christ the Lord and died on that cross for you, for me, so he could cleanse that wickedness that's in all of our hearts.
And today's palate cleanse, because it's been really cold, and I know you're frozen, but I'm definitely a wimp. And I've been out at the flag football fields every night this week. It's killing me. It's killing me. I'm wearing like 5 layers, and then I look up the temperature and it's 58 degrees. And I just know that Garrett would laugh, but I admit it and own it. So that's just where I'm at. And I started thinking about going on vacation to the beach, which I can just walk to, but I know so many people don't. And found this one. This is Dad press conference about taking the family to the beach and what ensues.
You think your beach trip was a success?
Sure. I don't know. I don't even know why we go there.
What would you consider key factors in vacationing with your family?
I mean, the first thing you need to understand is that you're just parenting somewhere else. There's no home field advantage. So if your kids start bickering, you can't send them to their rooms to separate them. You just try your best to not be that family in the lobby of the DoubleTree.
The beach is just a tough place to go to, period. You're carrying 100 pounds of stuff through 500 yards of hot sand, and as soon as you get to your spot, all you want to do is sit down. But the kids immediately want to go to the water, and if I'm being honest, the last thing I want to do is play Catch Me If You Can at the waves, okay? I bring a chair and I don't get to use it.
How do you manage the airport situation?
My goal is to just hand everything off that's with me to have somebody else deal with it and have it meet us where we're going. The fastest you can do that, the better off you'll be. It's just too bad you can't check the kids.
Any specific exit strategy?
Always use the hose near the parking lot, even though it doesn't work, because sand is coming with you. The beach is relentless.
Do you prefer road trips overall?
It doesn't matter. No matter how you slice it, I like being places. I just don't like going places. I'm sorry. There's just so much sand in this chair.
I can definitely empathize with so much sand, and then also relate to, I like being places, but just not going places.
Yeah.
Why don't I like to leave my house?
Uh-huh. And then those rare times you do when you get there, wherever there is, it's like, this actually isn't so bad.
Yeah, it's just getting there. So guys, we'll be with you back here on Rumble, rumble.com/amradpod, Saturday, 10:30. Looking forward to that. Make sure you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you this weekend. And till then, have a good one.
You've been listening to the voice of the Suspendables on the American Radicals podcast. Follow us on rumble.com/amradpod.